In the middle of a pandemic, Trump goes out there to do his daily press conference, and he and his cohorts in his administration decided, why don't we ramp up the war on drugs?
As governments and nations focus on the coronavirus, there's a growing threat that cartels, criminals, terrorists, and other malign actors will try to exploit the situation for their own gain, and we must not let that happen. We will never let that happen. Today, the United States is launching enhanced counter-narcotics operations in the Western Hemisphere to protect the American people from the deadly scourge of illegal narcotics. We must not let the drug cartels exploit the pandemic to threaten American lives. In cooperation with the 22 partner nations, U.S. Southern Command will increase surveillance, disruption, and seizures of drug shipments and provide additional support for eradication efforts, which are going on right now at a record pace. We're deploying additional Navy destroyers, combat ships, aircraft and helicopters, Coast Guard cutters, and Air Force surveillance aircraft, doubling our capabilities in the region. Very importantly, our forces are fully equipped with personnel, protective equipment, and we've taken additional safety measures to ensure our troops remain healthy.
What are they doing? Why are they doing this? Well, here's your answer. This is from the New York Times a few days ago. Venezuelan leader Maduro is charged in the U.S. with drug trafficking. Federal prosecutors accuse President Nicolas Maduro of participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy in a major escalation of the Trump administration's efforts to pressure him to leave office. So if you believe what they're saying here, I have a bridge to sell you. I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that anybody is naive enough to really believe what they're saying there about Maduro. You get that this is just another attempt to try to do regime change, right? You understand that, right? You understand. Remember the whole dog and pony show where they were like, Juan Guaido is now the president. And they were trying to force all the respective countries around the world to acknowledge that. Like, this is the guy, right? This is the guy. He's not the president. They're just playing make-believe. They're out there playing make-believe. And they keep ramping up sanctions at the same time. And this is classic Naomi Klein shock doctrine stuff. Hey, exploit a crisis and a tragedy to implement a pre-existing agenda that we wanted to implement. Well, another part of the pre-existing agenda is regime change in Venezuela. By the way, where else? Regime change in Iran. What else did they talk about in this press conference? Regime change in Iran. They said, oh, Iran is threatening. We found out that they were going to do a sneak attack on our troops. What are they not telling you? They're not telling you that the United States in the middle of a pandemic has continued to ramp up economic sanctions, which are an act of war because people aren't getting the medicine that they need. And also, we keep assassinating their top military commanders. So we're sanctioning them, we're starving them, we're making sure the medicine that they need doesn't get into the country, we're killing their top commanders, and then we turn around when they do a little saber rattling back at us and we're like, oh, come on, why are you being so aggressive and offensive? All we did was kill your top commanders and totally strangle your country and make sure you couldn't get any medicine. What's the problem? So it's so stupid. It reminds me of back in the day when I was a kid, Rowdy Roddy Piper, the professional wrestler, would hit his opponent with one of those chairs, one of the metal chairs, and then they would turn around and look at him like, the fuck did you just do? And then he would like drop the chair and be like, oh no, I'm sorry. As you just hit him with the chair, of course he's going to retaliate. This is the same thing. The U.S. keeps hitting Iran with a chair, and then Iran's like, I don't like this very much. And the U.S. is like, oh, come on, man. Unreasonable. It's so stupid. So anyway, just so you understand, this is the final fact I'll give you in this story, but only 7% of the drugs that come into the United States come through that eastern corridor. So in other words, only 7% of the drug trade comes the route near Venezuela, comes the eastern route. That number is so tiny. So 93% of the time, it's to the west of there. Namely, 93% of the time, it does not in any way, shape, or form come through Venezuela. And that's not me. When you talk about this stuff, people immediately come out and accuse you of like being sympathetic or whatever. No, I'm against him. I'm against any leader who I think is authoritarian. And I do think he's authoritarian. And I think there are, too many controls on the media and things of that nature. But that doesn't mean that every insane thing that the U.S. accuses him of doing and accuses him of being is true, because it's not. And we know it's not, because we know the, history of the United States. So, in the middle of a pandemic, all these resources now that are being sent to effectively try to topple a government that we don't like. Think about all the wasted resources. All these ships that they're using, all the manpower. We could definitely use that here at home because we have a pandemic ripping through the country. We could definitely use that here. But, they view this as an opportunity. And again, the opportunity is to do the shock doctrine and pretend like this is a really serious problem and the pandemic is being exploited by Maduro to bring more drugs into the country or something. So we got to go topple him. What are we going to do? We have no choice. Sure you do. You always had a choice, and I don't even believe what you're saying about them. So this is what happens when the worst people in the country run the government. This is what happens when the neocons take over. This is what happens. The corporate coup bailout is what happens when Wall Street takes over. Nothing is done for pure motives and to just help the American people and do the right thing. Nothing.